So, Jamie, tell us all about you. I mean, you've been in Parliament in Holyrood for a long while.
Long while. 18 years.
And one of the big reasons you joined the party back in the day was for the nuclear disarmament. And then you got involved with all the youth stuff and everything, did you?
So I joined the SNP when I was 18 years of age. I'd taken an interest in politics as I was getting into my teenage years, started to become more interested in the world around me, and came to the conclusion that I thought Scotland would be best served by being an independent country. I was born in 1979, the very year Thatcher came into power, so the entire experience of growing up was against the backdrop of Scotland having a hard right-wing government that we hadn't voted for, imposing decisions on Scotland that I thought were negatively impacting on the society that I was growing up in. So probably didn't think about it quite that deeply when I was 15 or 16, whatever it might be, but I certainly came to feel that Scotland's required to be independent. So we always got the government that we voted for, and certainly, yes, concern about investment in nuclear weaponry was and remains a concern to this day.
And so when did you come to take office? When did you put yourself forward for an elected office?
I first stood for Glasgow City Council in 2003, so I was pretty young then. What would have been 24 at that time, and that was really, if I'd been elected, I'd been elected, but that was back in the day. You were really putting up folk just to make sure there was an SNP candidate on the ballot box. So that was my first experience standing in Glasgow. I grew up in Glasgow, and then in 2005 I stood for Westminster in the Cumbernauld, Kilsyth and Kilsyth constituency, and I was approached by local members there to put my name forward. No great expectation, and I was lucky enough to be selected out of 3 prospective candidates, 3 people nominated, and the members there did me the great honour of selecting them. Again, realistically not expecting to be elected to Westminster at that time, but again, essentially we have SNP candidates standing everywhere, and I must have done enough for them to like me enough to invite me to be the candidate in Cumbernauld and Kilsyth in 2007.
How did you get into Holyrood?
So I was elected in 2007, didn't win the constituency, which was a source of bitter disappointment. I was one of 2, and it's a trivia question, I won't pose it to you, but if anyone's interested I can give them the answer, but I was one of only 2 candidates, and the only SNP candidate to get over 40% of the vote and not win the constituency they were standing in. But I was ranked high enough on the Central Scotland list and privileged enough to be elected as a regional member for Central Scotland in 2007. Then I just spent the next 4 years campaigning hard to try and make sure I won Cumbernauld and Kilsyth in 2011, and I did.
The motivation for doing all of that, you touched on it, but what sort of things have you felt that you've been able to give to the constituents of your...
Well, certainly as a constituency representative, as an elected representative actually, your primary responsibility is as a constituency representative to make sure that the voice of your constituents is heard in Parliament. Also, the large part of certainly my office's activity will be responding to concerns from constituents to try and help them with whatever problem or whatever issue is they want to flag, and I can tell you it could be anything and everything. So that's my primary responsibility. It's one I take very seriously, and hopefully it's been felt I've done okay at that.
It's a multi-layered, lot of things you have to be thinking about all the time, isn't it? Because then you then move into government, and that's another huge layer of responsibility, and you get specific tasks that you're really legally responsible for.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I consider myself fortunate. I had 7 years as a backbencher before I was appointed. So when Nicola took office as First Minister, she asked me to join her government, which I was not expecting. It was a bit of a surprise to be asked. It was obviously very...
So what was your first ministerial role?
My first role wasn't the first ministerial role. That could be misconstrued, putting it that way. The initial ministerial role I had was as Minister for sport, health improvement and mental health. Bit of a mouthful, but it was a role that I really, really enjoyed. So I did that from November 2014 until just after the 2016 election, when I moved on to a new ministerial role. And it was a good grounding in the experience of being a minister.
And then when you really caught the attention with Humza Yousaf and you became the Minister for Independence, or was it the Cabinet Secretary for Independence?
Minister for Independence. I was a Minister for Independence working directly to Humza as the First Minister. So it's interesting, that's when I first came to prominence. I'd been a minister for quite a while by that stage. So I think I'd been a minister for 7 years by that time. So,
but of course, the raison d'etre of the SNP is to become independent, and that was the one that actually the BBC and the ITV picked you up on.
Yeah, I mean that. I'm teasing, of course. Yes, it was naturally did sort of put me front.
Because it was a controversial idea, isn't it? Anyway.
For some it was controversial. The SNP is the party of independence. The Scottish Government had been elected on a platform to advocate for independence. That had been in our manifesto, so it was perfectly legitimate for Humza Yousaf to appoint a Minister for Independence, certainly by my estimation.
Of course, anybody on the unionist side would have spoken against it.
For our opponents, for those who are opposed to independence, they certainly made it out to be somewhat controversial. But if they won the election, they're entitled to take forward their agenda. They lost the election, we won the election, and we were perfectly entitled to take forward. That's the kind of thing I used to say in Parliament, incidentally, when I was the Minister for Independence.
But then, in this role, I heard a rumour that you'd written all these papers. Is that true?
Well, it would be a bit disingenuous to say I wrote them all entirely myself. So I worked very closely with other colleagues, where it was maybe in an area that directly related to their area of ministerial responsibility, worked very closely with other ministers, and of course drawing on the talents, the attributes of the civil service in Scotland as well. So it was a collective endeavour, but it was my responsibility to drive forward the Building a New Scotland series of independence prospectus papers whilst I was in a post. And I think, if I recall correctly, during my tenure as Minister for Independence, which was just over a year, I think we managed to publish 10 papers, so a bit of output there.
It was extraordinary. I mean, if I take on the role of being the general public, it was an extraordinary amount of work that you put out in that short space of time. And you deserve all the plaudits you get for that. It was fantastic.
Well, that's kind of you. I mean, it was, that was one area of responsibility. It was maybe the most overt and obvious as related to the role, but I was also spending a lot of time engaging with civic society. When we published a paper, that wasn't job done. You then go out and actually try and speak to people who had any interest in that area of policy, and also trying to engage with the wider independence movement as well. So it was a role I enjoyed.
And so, looking back over that particular period of your life and what you've done up until now, this is always the awkward question because it makes your brain go, oh, cool, now he's asked me that. But have there been some particular moments that you've been proud of, some of your help maybe, or something that really fell in the right order and everything looked nice for that particular time?
There's loads of things, you can think of, and it'd be wrong to speak about them because clearly your constituents approach you on the basis of confidentiality, but there'll be constituents that approach you for assistance and you actually are able to get some form of resolution for them, and that feels great. There's also, across the different ministerial roles I've held, there's legislation I've been able to take forward. So actually in that very first role I held as a health minister, took forward the Carers Act, which was designed to improve the experience for those who are involved in giving care. So it's these are things that I've been able to do, and I've been very proud to be involved in them.
And we look forward to seeing you being another term in Parliament after the 7th of May next year.
That's the plan, and I'll be certainly out working hard to make sure that we retain Cumbernauld and Kilsyth for the SNP.